record button, and you're free to go. The stage is yours. Yeah, quick introduction, and thank you, Tetra, for being here. And
Okay, yeah, perfect, sweet. So I'm Tetra. I've been in the space since roughly the beginning of 2017. And in that, I began as more of a chart maxi, but I wasn't very good at charting or technical analysis. I found myself better at fundamental analysis. So I found myself beginning to research projects a lot. I was researching projects to the point where I was invited on stage as a guest on someone's YouTube show to interrogate a project, which ended up failing. But that's kind of where I got my start in Web3 was just researching nonstop. I would be researching more than trading. Um, and I was always more in tune to the cybersecurity side of things because I began my sort of introduction to computers through getting around a lot of restrictions on computers, whether it be at school or at home or on public networks. So us all that experience kind of transferred over to Web3. And then that's why I do what I do now, which is I walk around and pester people to increase their security and to be careful with the projects that they interact with and to actually do their research, um, and also telling them how to do their research because telling someone DYOR if they're not in tune to exactly how to do that is kind of useless. Uh,
yep,
so
that's
yeah,
right.
so that's more of the introduction on me. Um, I'm definitely more of a protocol maxi, a really huge decentralization maxi, and I always complain that there's not good enough implementations here or there, um, and that's if you're following my Twitter or any of my social personalities, that's going to be mostly what I post about is how do we get better implementations of this, that, whatever. How do we get uh, personal identity onto the blockchain to make it usable? How do we? There's just so much that Web3 hasn't capitalized on quite yet, and then there's a lot of projects promising exceptional things when we don't have our foundations set up to do that.
And for your social, like, do you have the link for Twitter and the other things, so we can post that?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna jump over and where do you want me to post it?
Either in, like, you have the no mic, or we have opened a thread about the BDA, and I can just
Okay. And with that, I'm going to introduce the BDA. So what I do is I lead. I'm actually building a Web3 research organization, uh, and what that is just everyone coming together who considers themselves researchers in some capacity to do community research and also competitive research. So we do cross analysis of projects. We have a block list for all of our affiliates, so they can be warned, based on what project pops up on our radar. We have open evidence gathering, and what that is. Well, thank you for posting that. I was going to get to that.
yeah, no worries. I see you're on mobile, so it's easier.
Yeah. So the open evidence storage has a lot of uses, and that's a very integral part of the BDA in the Discord community. Uh, the one that new people and people wishing to learn more and can see how research is done, see the actual DYOR process and the results. And since it's open, anybody can verify that data. So what it is a trustless way for people to learn in this environment. We have that. We have a library of resources that we're building and constantly updating so that people can both get education in the space and increase their research know-how. and their investigative skills, whether it be on-chain analysis, smart contract analysis, people finding, i.e. docs. There's just a range of things that people can do when they're specifically researchers that can add to Web3, and that's really what we're doing here. But recently, we just started our first official test research item. We're putting up a project and we're moving the data through the Discord and the certain channels. Um, Everything's very modular in the community. There's specific roles to do specific things, and some roles can't do what others do uh, when it comes to the oversight committee and staff and all of this and all of that. But yeah, I'm going to build a bunch of Discord bots and all of this to kind of help this process and help make it faster and easier for people to pipeline themselves into more competent individuals in Web3. And that's really the end goal, which would be make more competent individuals, just a new generation of power users. This way, it makes it much harder for scammers to interact with the community and pool liquidity out of the markets, and it makes it more easy for projects that are good projects to get, I guess, exposure. Although that's not our main goal. But yeah, that's a little bit about the BDA. If anyone has questions on that, I'll answer it down the line.
And so yeah, you were talking about the Discord. Is the Discord open right now for people to like want to have the knowledge, or not yet?
So the Discord is technically open right now, but it's invite only, so it's not necessarily open to anybody because at this point it's a developmental stage. So it's open to people who consider themselves researchers, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And also it's open to people who aren't researchers but know of a researcher, either an on-chain sleuth or a smart contract auditor or a white hat hacker or what'll it be, that can actually help the BDA in their mission. In that way, if somebody doesn't know what's going on but knows somebody that does, they can onboard them and we can interview them, and then they'll both get an invite. But once the community deploys, it's going to be open for absolutely everybody in the community, and the main target would be the newer individuals of the space, because that's really the people we want to make more competent. And almost everything's free, because in saying that we do want more competent individuals, and we're kind of pulling that from the newer crowd. Not everybody has the money to put up for an NFT project, and if they're trying to learn, they're trying to learn cheaply, easily, and quickly. And if we could, do that for them, for the community, that's just going to be better in the long run.
Nice. So maybe let's like jump into an example on like one good question was how to spot like a shady program contract. Like you told me when we talked earlier this week, you had like a very high success. Rate success about like spotting rugs or slow rugs. Like, how do you approach that?
So my personal success rate of spotting specifically rugs is almost 100%. There's a lot of easier ways to be able to tell what project is going to be a rug off the rip, but those ways aren't always consistent, so that requires more analysis. But for someone like me, it's usually, if it's an NFT art project, um, not to be an art critic, but I look at the art itself. If I haven't gotten to the point where I'm actually researching, I look at the art, and then because I've seen a lot of the art in the NFT projects that come through, because I'm also an admin of an NFT calendar community. So there's thousands and thousands of projects that get cycled through, and you begin to see similarities in the art between projects. So one thing to look at is, hey, is this a derivative art project? because a significantly higher volume of scams happen through derivative art projects, and not just scams, straight up malicious contracts, uh, token contracts, that is, that are set to dust your wallet, which means set approval for all through the token transfer. And what that does is sets it just once you verify that transaction, you sign it, and you've said that, hey, this contract has the permission to take all of my tokens. And a lot of that happens um, through a lot of uh, derivative projects. And this is one of the reasons I look at those, is because I like to see how much effort is put into the project. And if off the rip you're looking at a project and you see that there's not a lot of effort put into the art, if you haven't done the research and the art hasn't had a lot of effort put into it, then you can assume that not a lot of effort is going to be put into the rest of the project.
That's true.
And then if you go to the project and they're promising ridiculous things like covering all bases, like this is going to be a metaverse project. We're going to also do merch. We're going to also give away this and that and do this. And our contract is exceptional and everything's good and great. And you're looking at the art and you're just like, well, this art is just double derivative art. Like, for example, this isn't a real project, but it very well could be, given NFTs. Um, Walking ape doodles, right?
Yep.
If you see a project and you see a walking ape doodle, they're taking from 3 separate projects or 2 separate projects, and I guess I wouldn't say adopting the art, because a lot of times it's just those derivative projects are straight stolen art from those projects, and it's a very lazy way to do it because it's more um, trend hopping than it is creating something for the community. And once you see that and you see their promise of them telling everyone that they're creating things for the community and doing big things, that becomes an inconsistency. So a lot of what I look at would be inconsistencies. I
Okay.
may have went off tangent there.
No, and also like you talked about the contract and like the token function, but let's say someone is non-developer programmer stuff. What could be an easy way to spot those shady contract? Like,
So so um, there's a lot of tools out there, both paid and free, to sort of verify contracts if you're not a developer. Um, Let me pull a couple of them up right now. The only thing that came to mind right there was checkfish.ai, but that was specifically for links to sanitize links.
and guys, if you have a
Okay.
specific
Yeah,
question of
so
general question, just go ahead and you can type them.
yeah, and I'll take all questions. All right, so what I use mainly to freely check contracts is honeypot.is. So that's
Yeah.
honeypot.is. And what that is just it's a smart contract auditor that's automated. So it checks against values that are already known to be malicious or potentially dangerous, or set up so that the owner address or the marketing address or any of the controlling addresses with a high concentration of the tokens can pull liquidity out of that smart contract. Uh, so it's not 100% foolproof, because obviously there's always going to be new vulnerabilities, but um, it works significantly well, since a lot of these smart contracts are copy paste code from older smart contracts. So a lot of the malicious contracts are actually just older contracts that haven't been updated. Um, but yeah, honeypot.is works. You can use Token Sniffer. You can use PooCoin. I think I may have missed a couple, but
But it's
honeypot.is is the go-to for me
and those are
for
for like the tokens and the coins, right?
yes, that's exactly correct. But um, oftentimes, uh, some of these smart contracts are not verified, so they're not really open source.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't actually see what's inside the smart contract. So it's not always 100% foolproof because someone could be blindly jumping into a project and that project may never release their code and then they might do malicious things that way. And that's why I highly suggest checking to see if the contract is verified. So you just enter the contract address in Etherscan and see if there's that green check mark on the contract tab.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And would like when doing those look, let's say I wanna buy these new tokens. Uh, what should how should I do it? Like with a new wallet or a burner? Like how can I be sure to be safe during this process?
So to make it easy, because there's a lot of ways to go about securing yourself through wallets, but to make it easier, you can have um, two separate addresses. One you could have as a MetaMask, and then the other you could have as a cold storage wallet. And if anybody has questions on which cold storage wallet is a better alternative between Trezor, Ledger, KeepKey, all these cold storage wallets, I'll be more than happy to go into that.
Okay.
Um, but to be basic, I would just use two separate wallets. One is a hot wallet that you use to transact, and the other as a cold storage wallet as you use to store the NFTs that you don't interact with on a day-to-day basis. And that could be potentially more for long-term holds or to just be that bank for you. Um, but I want to go back on this and suggest not purely using a cold storage wallet to actually hold most of your NFTs and hold most of your tokens. What I would suggest is a personal approach, and this is one that people aren't as familiar with, but having one wallet and having that wallet be a multi-signature wallet, and you just having two other addresses that sign for that address's transaction.
Okay.
If that makes if that makes sense, that's a much more secure approach um, than simply just having the two addresses, especially considering the abundance of malware that's being produced at a ridiculous rate for the NFT community.
Okay. And here it's asking on the Etherscan when you say like check for the contract, the green check mark means the contract has been audited, right?
Well, no, not at all.
Okay.
The because millions, well, not millions, but thousands and thousands of projects have that and have not been audited. What that green check mark specifically means is that the code matches. Um,
Okay.
like that the code that they put on Etherscan and the code that they show, for lack of a better word, matches, and it's the same code. That contract code and the code that they tell people is that contract's code matches,
Perfect.
and that's very important.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good question, Radster. And yeah, like with those token, what are like the general scams running on there? Like the maybe you have some example of trickiest one
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
with like the tokens and the coins. What are like the kind of general scams that can happen, or maybe an example of like some of the trickiest one you've seen?
So I've just recently seen one, which is an upgradable smart contract. So the smart contract itself, um, once once I guess transferred to the owner address of a smart contract and signed for, it it actually becomes that smart contract's owner. And mainly what it was originally for was so that people that were in control of a smart contract, i.e., token. They want to upgrade their smart contract, but they don't necessarily know how.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an easy way for people from the outside that wanted to work on a contract to do just that. Um,
Okay.
so it transfers ownership, transfers proxy ownership. It gets a new owner, and then it tells, um, yeah, and then it publicly calls that owner's address and changes everything afterwards because you essentially would have a new contract owner at that point. And what happened with that is now it's being maliciously used. It's just being sent out as a token to, I guess, project owners. And then
Mm-hmm.
people say, "Hey, I accidentally sent you a token. Can you send it back?" Right?
Okay. Yes.
And then once you try to send it back, they could mask a transaction depending on how sophisticated that smart contract is. It can send a transaction immediately before or after a real transaction is signed for, so that the project owner signs for two transactions, one to I guess pull one transaction would just actually send NFTs out of that smart contract, and the other one would be signed to assume ownership transfer, if that makes sense.
Yes. We have like another question, like still regarding the tokens. The one where you click on, like, let's say someone sends you some tokens. How can they be malicious just by clicking on them? Like, how does that work?
Well, they can't necessarily be malicious just by clicking on the token. That really depends on how sophisticated it is. But on a usual basis, what would happen is that token sends a uh, pretty much a transfer request. It just what was that word? It prompts the address owner to sign a transaction,
Mm-hmm.
and that transaction would usually be an approved for all transaction. And what that would mean is effectively you have said yes, this token, this smart contract, I am approving all transactions. So I am approving this contract to transact on my behalf for absolutely everything. So what that means is if you have other tokens or NFTs, Ethereum, what'll it be in that address or stored with that wallet, then that smart contract can take all of them at any point in time, and that's what's called a dust token.
Okay. Because a lot of the times those kind of token you can, I think, easily spot them if you like are on OpenSea, because they like with the report function on OpenSea, they're automatically going into your hidden folders, right?
Yes, and they would go into your hidden folder on MetaMask too if you have that enabled. Like automatically hide NFTs that you don't recognize. That's an option you can use with MetaMask, which I use with MetaMask.
Okay.
Um, and the reason I do that is just so because I go into there sometimes and I look at my NFTs. I look at the ones I have, and I don't want to accidentally, under any circumstance, select an NFT um, and and really interact with it
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know of.
Okay, okay. And rest are asking, so if I click on those shitty polygons NFTs, it could pop up a transaction, but it is not necessarily malicious. Only if I sign it, right?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
but so there's another sophisticated way that they can go about doing that. So another one that I've seen is a project releases a legitimate NFT and then airdrops immediately afterwards or a month later, depends, another NFT, but that NFT itself is a dust token that's attached to that same smart contract. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, depending on what you've signed with that smart contract, that token can be put into your wallet regardless through the airdrop, and your interaction with the, I would say, main smart contract um, would pass to that new token.
All right, I see.
So it really, so that's a more sophisticated approach.
Okay, okay. And here, Muka, can any other NFTs or tokens collect the metadata, IP, or anything just by being in my wallet without signing anything?
No, no, not at all, not at all.
So you basically, if you want to get scam, you need to click on that sign button and interact with the token.
So at maximum, one of these dust tokens or malicious tokens would be collecting your public address, and that's because everything's enclosed on the EVM. If you're dealing with Ethereum, if not the Solana's blockchain or Polygon's blockchain or Cardano's.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and since we're talking about scams, earlier this week we talked a little together about like the new group of hackers and those malicious like ways of getting your NFTs. Could you elaborate on that, like with the new type of scam appearing right now in the space?
Yes, yes. So there's a lot of 0 days popping up, and there is potential for an underground competition,
And
which
just
which was
can you tell for the people that don't know what is a 0 day?
so a 0 day is just an exploit that has just been found in the wild and has not been patched yet. So Google Chrome just now is telling everybody to please update your browser, your Google Chrome browser, because there was a 0 day found that they had not patched yet um, for that browser that people were taking advantage of. Um, it was mostly state actors, but still, everything could be passed around for money.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But yeah, pretty much a 0 day is a fresh exploit, fresh malware, fresh everything that attacks a system that hasn't been patched.
All right, thanks. And so yeah, to continue with the new scams, the new.
So so that would be more on sort of like the structure of what's going on, um, more negatively. So there's three groups that I know of, although there's most likely more. Um, there's four, I think. There's a couple ransomware groups that compete, and what they do is it's more targeted um, to an individual. And what happens is they're mainly sending their ransomware and malware through email links and phishing links that look like official links from places that you've already been to, like OpenSeas or even Amazon Web Server, if you've signed up for that in any capacity. It's just email links through official looking documents. Um, and that's and that would be the shiny hunters uh,
Okay.
group. And there's a few other ransomware groups. There's a lot of ransomware going around that's in .scr file types, which is an image file type. And what that means specifically is for artists and people that provide services in the community. Those people are specifically targeted through people messaging them about collaborations, right? People get messages about collabs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone's being really, really pushy about a collaboration and they're like, hey, I'd like you to check this out, it may seem friendly, and oftentimes it is. And this is why I suggest using checkfish.ai to verify that that link is clean. They can essentially get you to select malware. Well, not select malware, but uh, move you to a website that is running live malware. And depending on the sophistication, it could be drive-by malware, which you don't have to click on, the site's already running it, and it exploits you through that. And yes, Attaboy, that is the correct website for Checkfish AI. I highly suggest using that.
Perfect.
So those are more of the malware-oriented groups. There's I think 3 that I know of. I think even Lapsus is in on this, which is more of a Russian group that does ransomware. There's Shiny Hunters. There's it wouldn't. I don't think it would help to really explain the groups and what they do. So I'm just going to explain how you can be exploited. Would that be better?
Yep.
Okay. One would be the collaboration, and how to tell would be if people are being super pushy about collaborations, like, hey, like I need you to check this out. There's a limited time, or hey, I have to have your opinion as soon as possible. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good not a good look. The other one is through emails, but this would be for people that that publicly announce what they own, i.e., the people that have the hexagons on Twitter. If I were a threat actor, I would build my threat model based on those individuals, and I would scan their Twitter and pull up anything and everything I could based on them to create a threat around that. And then after that, I would just use malware that's free. Because the Mars Stealer ransomware, I have a copy of it. It's free.
Okay.
And I would use that against those people through emails. But yeah, that's the most popular way to
So you
disseminate.
strongly suggest like to not brag about your NFT, and the more discreet and secretive you are, the more secure you are, right?
Yes, 100%. Because that's where a lot of these compromises come from, and that's why, if you think about it, that's why we hear about a lot of these major compromises of these influencers and individuals and whales, because they have high influence and they can talk to a lot of people. So when they are compromised, a lot of people would know about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are targets, and they're usually easy targets, considering the NFT space, because what has happened over time is the school of thought has changed from doing research to aping in as fast as possible, getting that whitelist, rushing in, FOMOing in, and that's where a lot of the problems can occur, especially with people that do own a lot. Because they don't have the best security practices, and not a lot of people in the NFT space do.
Yep, that's true. And like a question here we have regarding the NFT and the token. Is there any tool that can scan your wallet for dust token or malicious NFTs?
So, not that I know of, but there are several tools to which I find a bit more useful, to revoke the permissions that those NFTs have on the wallet, because sometimes a project may release an NFT, and to obfuscate when and where that came from, they would deploy their attack at a later date while having the permissions in the beginning. I would use revoke.cash, which has been going around. It's been making its rounds. There's several others. I'm not getting them off the top of my head.
So basically, what does this website do?
So revoke.cash, it just checks for the permissions that you have enabled. It checks for all permissions to every token that you have, and it just revokes those permissions. And it costs a little bit of gas to do it, but if you if you hold a large amount of money, that's going to be worth it.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's not that you have to do that often. It's just that that's the preferred thing if you're trying to, I guess, secure your money.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Also, Ethereum has their own official, um, similar to Revoke.cash. Let me.
And
No, I'll get back to it. I'll post it in the chat.
yeah, no problem. We can post like the link after. And
Yeah. So afterwards, I'm just going to post a whole bunch of useful links that people can use to sort of increase their defensive posture.
okay, perfect. Is there any other ways to be compromised except for phishing links?
I mean, yeah, your friends can compromise you, you know. So your
Yep,
friends
the
can become liability.
social engineering.
Exactly. And not necessarily straight with malware, but so if you're on social media like Twitter, it's the people that you're around. They can essentially not necessarily compromise you through malware, but depending on when you came into the space and who you came into the space with, that may very well end up making you lose liquidity and lose your finances. And that's just how life goes. And this is why I urge people to, if they do find themselves getting rugged and scammed frequently or enough times that they're beginning to lose capital, to change their friend circle, completely, everybody in it.
Yep.
Um, because that's that's really, if you think about it, that's one of the best ways to continually scam people. um, is have an influencer bring people from TikTok or some other social media source into your project, and then those people are very new to the space, they don't know a lot, and then those people that you're scamming and at the same time telling them, you know whatever you want. They're not really gaining any knowledge, and they're learning how to interact with Web3 the worst way possible,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of affects the people that they're around. So naturally, you would want to refresh the people that you're around.
Okay, thanks. And can any of my information on a manager like 1Password get compromised in this space in any way?
So, so the question was, can any of your information get compromised in the space in any way?
Yeah,
Was I hearing that?
like I think Muka is using like a vault password, like a password
Yeah.
manager. Can it get compromised? Like, have you heard like about scam already? Like trying to get those passwords and reach every information into it.
So So the individuals in more the NFT security space and cybersecurity in general do highly suggest using password managers. NordPass is a good one, and what that would do for you is it would store your credentials not on your system, but through another system, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot better if you consider the story that I'm about to tell you, which just happened recently with one of my friends, was hit with fake ransomware. But what it was just that .scr variant of Mars Stealer, which scrapes your entire machine for plain text hexadecimals.
Okay.
And what that is, so your public key is a hexadecimal, your private key is a hexadecimal. Um, on any chain, usually that's ERC20 compatible. When you store your recovery phrase, that gets inputted to on chain as a hexadecimal. So what these programs do is it just scrapes your computer for any place um, where you've, I guess, stored your passwords, your credentials, and your private keys, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
yeah, to answer your question, um, you can be, I guess, vulnerable to that, if that answers that question.
Yep, I think so. Let me check if we have.
And afterwards, I'm going to post a good way, a solid way to remove ransomware from your computer. And it might not be a foolproof method, but since a lot of malware in that's out in the open is older, there have been patches for it,
Mm-hmm.
and there are guides on how to remove it, which is very useful.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so Redster, absolutely. I would caution anybody who's just getting into the space or either has experience in the space to never store your credentials on your device. And that's credentials for anything. Um, so if you use that device to sign up for things, that's fine, but don't also have your credentials to sign up for anything else on that device. It's just very dangerous because there's a whole lot of malware out that just scrapes machines like keyloggers. That just yeah.
Toot, toot, toot. And how to see if you have malware on your PC and how to remove it. But I think that's what you just said. Like that, those are gonna be the links you're gonna like post, right?
Yes, 100%. Um, and there are more guides there's step-by-step guides to do things like hey, check your Windows registry, check your Mac, uh, check to see what was run on your system at any point in time. And also there's tools for deep packet inspections over your network to see like, hey, I did this at this specific date. What was it? Oh, this was the IP. And you can check against other databases that will tell you if that IP is related or registered, in any way to malicious activity.
Okay, cool. If you guys have any other questions, and let me check. So maybe we could, because I saw like people coming in and already like
So,
42
so in the
minutes.
meantime,
Yeah,
while they're formulating those questions, I'd like to caveat into something else also,
yeah.
like
Just
how to detect,
go ahead.
um, and what kind of hijacking there is.
Yep, we can do that. Let's go.
Okay. So for Discords and everything you do, I really stress that people have two-factor enabled. If they can, you can use Google Authenticator. If you're trying to be a moderator, or just if you're just there and you're just trying to be more secure, I would definitely suggest using two-factor authentication, although that is not a be-all, end-all solution, because there are things that can bypass two-factor authentication. Um, so, not to demotivate people into getting that security posture, but yes, there's man-in-the-middle attacks, and that's just like your session hijacking. So a lot of what people have been hearing on crypto Twitter or this and that is that, hey, what I did was I was trying to sign up for a Discord, and then it had me bookmark something. Don't do that. Discords never have you bookmark anything, so that's first and foremost. Or, hey, I went onto this website, or maybe I was tricked into pressing F12, and then because if you do that, you can see your session ID through Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more for moderators. But any session ID, what that is the token you get from that service that says you are logged in. So if somebody else has that specific session ID, they don't need the two-factor authentication. They can log in as you, and they are you, and doing that removes you from your side. And then
Okay.
they now have control. They don't need your password. They don't need to go to Google Authenticator, because essentially you have done all of that already, and then you get your session ID. So if they have it, they don't need it. They don't need all the other stuff. Uh, so to continue, and that would be a man in the middle attack. And they're usually employed very, very early on during the attack chain. And that's reconnaissance, intrusion, and exploitation. They usually use that to harvest your credentials and mainly gather intelligence about the targets. And that's really if you're out there, about your money. You really won't see a lot of man in the middle attacks if you're not, if you're not sticking your head out in Web3.
They always act like
So,
as someone who's like trying to scam you. So be cautious on any links and any people you're talking to.
and definitely keep a healthy routine of changing your passwords. And it could be made easier by using a password manager. But I would definitely change your passwords every once in a while, just common security practice. Because specifically, so I traverse a lot through the dark web and try to gather malware and spyware more often than malware. Um, and through those servers and communities and boards, people will sell your information. People sell information 24/7, often cheaply. So that could be your credentials, and essentially once you change your password, you're patching that, and it's very important, especially if it's the password to your online banking, or it's just a lot of things. Um, you definitely would need to change your credentials. You don't have to change them all the time, but maybe pick one day out of the month and just be like, hey, okay, I'm just going to change the passwords to these 7 or 8 critical outlets that I have,
Okay.
because who knows, my data might be out there.
Yep, that's something I never do, changing my passwords. That's
You definitely should.
yeah.
Chances are it's being sold for $50 right now.
Yeah, yeah, I think yeah. And do they have those information? Let's say a website got hacked or like the data. That's how it works, right? They hold the database and then they just sold the information.
What was that?
Like for like let's say how does that work? I think it's like a website got hacked or they just get like the database, right? And then they sell those information.
Yes, yes, absolutely. There's a lot of communities. There's a lot of black hat communities that trade information too. So if someone has information in a I guess smaller concentration but more critical information, and somebody else has a lot of information. For example, if someone has I guess 100 or 200 credentials that are related to banking or Chase Bank, right, for
Mm.
individuals, and then somebody else, I guess, hacked Discord and got like the passwords of 16,000 individuals. They can essentially just trade that information, right? And then they can sell and do whatever they want. And now there's twice as many individuals that have your exposed credentials.
Okay.
And there's a lot of places that do this. Some of them do that for free, and this is why I definitely suggest changing your passwords often.
And regarding those passwords, beside Discord, what other services would you recommend changing passwords? Like as you said, maybe on a monthly basis. Like,
So, I mean, anything that has to do with finances. I would definitely change those passwords more regularly, like your banks. If you do online banking, definitely change that. Your emails, definitely change that, because I know me personally, I am not the most secure with emails, and this is why I have 70 different emails that I use and rotate. Um, but your email usually is definitely a weak point, because people use their emails for everything. People might use one email for their finances, and also they use that same email for their social medias, and they use that same email for their when they sign up to buy an NFT, which is kind of ridiculous. Don't ever input your information to an NFT project. Just don't do that. I would highly suggest against doing that. Um, but yeah, the your emails are definitely a weak point. Um, it's not as important, but you can definitely think about changing your credentials to streaming services like Twitch. Uh,
Netflix, Spotify.
yes, exactly. Everything, because those essentially are hooked up to your finances.
Okay. An interesting question here following that. Most banking apps these days they have like authentication with pins or fingerprints. Is there another solution for this?
So, Google Authenticator definitely works. I mean, there's a lot of different authenticators that you can use, but using another 2FA authenticator on top of having your fingerprint recognition uh, used for authentication is definitely, especially for mobile devices. If you can use uh, a a use your fingerprint instead of a passcode, a PIN number for your mobile device,
Mm-hmm.
because it would cost a lot more money um, and it would require a lot more sophistication to bypass um, your what is it?
The
Well, not
fingerprints.
fingerprint ID, but yeah, um, but that type of data. Um, whereas you are uh, you're potentially vulnerable to a keystroke logger, a sophisticated one, if you're typing in your passcode all the time. But that's that's neither here nor there. You're always going to be vulnerable, so I would just use a combination, if you can, of the fingerprint recognition and the passcode entry.
All
But
right.
if it comes to one or the other, I would use your fingerprint rather than a passcode. But it
Nice.
depends
Mm-hmm.
if you're around a lot of people. This and this is why there's very specific cases. So if you're around a lot of people a lot of people that you don't know, and you're at parties and you're doing this and doing that, and just meeting a lot of people, I would suggest then not having the fingerprint recognition and going with the PIN entry, and just having an 8 or 9 digit PIN entry.
Make
Because
those password longer, so it's like harder to get through them.
exactly. And to answer Red Star's last question, I think you're talking about Etherscan. So the green check mark is exactly that. That tells you that Etherscan has verified that 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 the code that they show is the exact code on the contract. And what that would mean is they would have to reveal their contract. So in a sense, minting from contracts that are verified is much better, because even if you don't know, and checkfish, sorry, if you don't know, or automated smart contract auditors don't know, someone else may know. Someone else may know and be able to provide that information on that contract, whether it's secure, malicious, and or if it has outdated functions, dependencies, or calls. Yes, exactly. They can still put malicious functions in there, but it's a lot less likely that they would, because now everybody can see their code, and everybody can use the automated systems to check the code. So it would require them to be much more sophisticated, and that's really rarely the case with the NFT space in general, because a lot of the code is older and overused.
Yeah, just people are copy pasting it to make fast cash, crap cash.
Yes, 1,000%, 1,000%. A lot of these smart contracts. So, and this is why Open Zeppelin is so popular, because it just makes building a contract so easy, because they have so many libraries and resources that you can use to to build your smart contract and deploy it. And if it becomes if it becomes much more easy to deploy and build, then you're getting eventually you're getting a lot of the less sophisticated scammers to build and deploy and print contracts. And this is where one of the theories is brewing of the master dev behind a lot of contracts.
Okay. This is the
Yes,
checkmark
that's
you're
exact.
talking about. Yeah.
Yes, that's the exact check mark. Because once you see that, you can see the code, and it verifies. Yes, everything that was just talked about.
And if we'd like to do, I think, a quick resume sum up of what we've been talking, like what, let's say, like in 5 line, what should people do and not do, like just to be cautious and the more secure.
So, so
We can't hear you, Tetra. I think you're bugging. Headphone, no battery, maybe. And he's here. Invite to speak.
did it refresh?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. So uh,
I was saying like
VP
about a resume and like a quick summary of what we've been saying on how to be more secure and what to avoid.
100%. There's a couple easy things that you can do. One is use a VPN. There's a lot of them, and if you want to be anonymous, some of them do take Monero, which I would suggest. You can use CryptoStorm, iVPN, VPN.ac, and you can use NordVPN. And what that does for you essentially is the VPN provides you an IP address with certificates that you can use on websites. And what that does is it just removes your IP from the game, so the attackers don't have that on you. And not only that, trackers, surveillance, a lot of things are mitigated through using a VPN. But if you want to be more secure, you can combine VPNs, and that's where you get into VPN tunneling. But when you're interacting with NFT projects and they have a website, I highly suggest using a VPN. And the other thing I would suggest is also waiting, but I know that's often not feasible with a lot of these projects. You can't just wait until someone says, "Hey, it's secure," to mint. And,
the FOMO can hit.
Yes, exactly, and you could end up passing a lot of good projects by doing that. So I would use a VPN to interact with the websites. I would use checkfish.ai to interact with the URLs that get sent to you in any case, not just with projects, especially if you're out there. And I would use, I would definitely keep your antivirus updated, and I wouldn't use free antivirus. If you use something like Malware Bytes, that's a very good antivirus that's highly suggested by the cybersecurity community. Kaspersky, even though given political implications here and there, it's whatever, but it's still a strong antivirus solution. I wouldn't have too many antiviruses on your computer because that could become useless and it could take up clock cycles from your CPU and end up slowing you down.
Okay.
But once you've done all that, once you have your VPN set up, once you have checked that website is not malicious, then you see the contract that you're going to interact with. You copy paste that contract onto Etherscan, and then you can see, hey, is this verified or not? And if it's unverified, I would be hesitant because their code is not public. If they promise to verify that contract, that's 100% on you to to assess that risk level.
And don't click on any like every links people are sending to you. Also, a good thing
So,
I like to do
so I
is
can't
like
suggest that.
yeah,
So me myself, I can't suggest that because I click absolutely every link that comes to me,
okay.
which is not the wisest thing. But I have a much more hardened system that I have set up to combat a lot of malware, especially since I take time collecting malware. It's very important um, to have a defensive system set up.
Yep.
But for people that don't have that defensive system set up, 100% be careful with the links that you get, especially in the NFT space, because the concentration of malware is very, very high here because this is developing technology still. And there's a lot of people getting onboarded. And I don't want to be the person that says, hey, we're early, but we are. But we're also late to the malware game, where a lot of this malware is already out there, and they're just waiting for people that are in the FOMO mindset to be clicking and doing all these things.
And one thing I also I think everyone should do is like for personally I block like the DM from every server I am on Discord, and if someone wants to talk to me, yeah, just ping me, and then we can like add you as friend. But if not, you're gonna have like many DMs per day, and with fake linking.
100% block your DMs, limit who can add you as a friend to the servers you're familiar with. Um, Also, you can use multi-factor authentication via peer-to-peer. So if someone wants to send you something, and they have the name of someone you recognize, but maybe you haven't talked in a while or whatever it may be, you can ask them, "Hey, send me a message on the other social media." And if it doesn't come through, then you may have a little bit of an issue.
Yep.
But if you know the person, I would believe that you would have contact with them through multiple outlets.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can't do that, then that's a little bit of a problem. And then if they do send you the links, you can just check them. It's it's pretty easy.
And I see Matthias is typing. Well, I'm thinking, yeah, we're slowly like reaching the end, almost like yeah, more than an hour. I'm just we're gonna wait for Matthias, or like if you guys have any other last questions, the thread gonna still be open. So if you have any like other question, I think Tetral or even like we guys can answer that to you. And also Tetra is gonna like send the links we've talked about, the names of the antivirus, to make a resume in the end, and like
100%.
after the MA.
The antivirus, the VPNs, and the tools to secure yourself, because that's what's most important.
Matthias, is it possible to plug DM by default in Discord? Yes. So you don't need to have any plugin. You just need to go on your user settings and where was it? I think it's like on the third tab, privacy and safety, and you have like server privacy defaults, although direct messages from server member. You can turn that off by default, and then you can, when you join a server, you can then automatically like just put like enable the DM from other member just for that specific server, and then you can also like enable or disable who can add you as a friend. Like for example, since Syndicate we're a small group, I enable for this server like everyone can add me and DM me on here. No, I don't think even the DM are enabled for me here, only friend request, because there's like a lot of people who try to come to the Discord and So the website Malwarebytes, paid version. Yeah, I think we'll do a nice like written summary, resume of everything I've been said, with all the
That'd
links.
be in just one block. Just tell them VPNs,
Yep.
antivirus, this, that. So there's a few things I want to finish up.
Yep. Let's go.
There's so there are a lot of VPNs you can use. Like me, I'm partial to privacy and services that accept privacy. So Surfshark, Windscribe, CryptoStorm, Boli VPN, VPNAC, iVPN. Those are all good VPNs that also accept Monero or other cryptocurrencies, um, and they accept fiat payments too. But it really depends because every service can be vulnerable. Uh, and here was my material. So for malware, a lot of people may not immediately know how to tell that their system has been infected. But if you get random pop-ups, um, obviously the seizure banner is going to be your prime is going to tell you if you've been infected. But
Okay.
also if you're getting bumped off of Wi-Fi repeatedly, that is a red flag for your own safety. Um, and just regular pop-ups, if the command line is running, if task manager is running, if programs that you haven't enabled that don't just run automatically are running, then that is also a red flag. And I wouldn't use public Wi-Fi unless your system is hardened, but most people's systems are not hardened. So the consensus with the cybersecurity community is to just never use public Wi-Fi
Yeah, that's something
at all.
I'm never connecting like on public Wi-Fi. Since like
Because
we have
well,
go ahead.
for black hats and people that do damage, public Wi-Fi's are a great spot. Like I would definitely hook up my computer to public Wi-Fi and just start running deep packet analysis or some other tools on Kali to start attacking other people on that same network.
Yeah,
Like if it's an airport network or a coffee shop or whatever it may be,
McDonald's, yeah,
those
everywhere.
yeah those I mean essentially your IP is out there. On that public network. And it's much easier for me to discover your machine on a network that I'm already attached to. Yeah, and only validate the end-to-end connections. So not only keeping your antivirus updated, but keep your software and all your devices updated. And that'll prevent you from a lot of 0 days and a lot of other malicious attacks. And in doing this will drop your attack surfaces considerably. If you regularly scan for malware, I mean, you can use Malwarebytes, and then back up your device after the scans. There's that's relatively easy, but it reduces your attack surface and provides redundancy for you and your data. And when you are scanning, do not set a schedule. Just randomly scan. Just be like, oh, today's, I got a half an hour, I got 20 minutes. I'll just scan for malware.
Okay.
Use a password manager. NordPass is a great one. Use multi-factor if you don't have two-factor authentication, and also just assume zero trust on everything and everyone. I mean, not that your friends are going to get you. No, that's very unrealistic. But depending on if you know a lot of people in the space, they're potentially liabilities at the end of the day. And if they get compromised and you trust them, their account gets compromised, they could be used to infect other people. And it might not be their fault.
Yeah.
And also, if you are on multiple social medias, Um, it's not what I do, but for other people, I would just make sure that your EFPs and your profiles are different
Yeah,
on
because they can do like
between those.
the reverse image search, right?
Well, they can do that most definitely, and that's very easy to do on Google. And I suggest doing that for NFT projects. But if you want another AMA specifically on NFT projects and those red flags, I can do that, or I can do that now, because I noticed there was a question earlier that was asking what red flags do I look at for NFT projects, and I have a lot of them.
No, I think we can
Um,
do a split, like we can talk after this one, but we can do another hour like specifically entitled to that, and I think we might have like more people,
yes, yes,
so we can
that's
definitely
definitely not a problem.
set up one like for this week, or well, I mean we'll check that after, no problem.
100%.
Checking. Is there any like last call, guys? Any other last questions? And if no, it's gonna be the end.
Yeah, so if anybody here has a question about the BDA specifics, how to join or how to do research or how to increase your competency in Web3, or how to deploy a smart contract or just a bunch of random questions, I'm definitely here to answer those.
I don't see anyone typing, so I think I could just say thank you, Tetra, for this first AMA about security. It was super interesting. I discovered like a lot of stuff, and I know I'm gonna start changing my passwords now.
Yes, you definitely should do that.
Yeah, and hey guys, thank you for being there, and we'll talk later, I think.
Well, it's been great.
I think your mic cuts off again.
Maybe. Well, he got out. I think he's gonna get in.
Yep.
Wanted to pop in to say thank you. Like this is by far the AMA that I've been the most paying the most attention. Really, thank you very much for coming here. It was a really good one, and I'm still looking to download a new antivirus and maybe check a few of my protocols that I thought I was pretty good. Like I'm very paranoid with this shit, but I'm still learning and I'm gonna do some changes. So thank you.
Thank you for coming up. And also maybe during the next AMA, I can explain to people who are more tech oriented, or if they have those kinds of questions, how to absolutely harden your system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something we can do.
Oh, that would be great, like a checklist, and you can just like go one by one and do everything. That would be amazing, and we're happy to bring you again. Really appreciate that. Like we're recording this, so this is not only the people that are here. We have this, so we can just people can listen to this after. So
Yep.
that's great.
And they can hear me run off on several tangents.
Tangents are great, man. It is what it is.
So so the potential schedule for the next one, I don't know about that yet, but the topic of discussion could specifically be about NFTs.
Yep.
And that would definitely
That will help a lot of people, I think.
yes, and I think that would definitely benefit the community, considering the I can just pull more resources from the BDA,
Mm-hmm.
considering it's an NFT research community.
Yep, we're gonna set that up.
Yeah, but like even like security, like I've seen people that were literally applying to be a multi-sig in a project that runs millions of dollars, and they got hacked 2 times. I'm not joking.
Yeah, so I mean, a multi-sig is not a be-all end-all, because it depends. So, so if it's a large community and it's a multi-million-dollar community / protocol / crypto or NFT project, a multi-sig is not enough, especially for a DAO.
I know.
So a multi-sig and the accounts, sorry, the addresses that are hooked up to that multi-sig for the consensus in that community should be on cold storage, like if you have a ledger, because
Oh
that would
yeah,
mean that people would have to have physical access to that ledger for that signature in the ring of multi-signatures. Or if you want to harden it even more, you could have the person holding the multi-sig, uh, the 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 signing credentials could be a multi-sig itself. So they could have two other addresses that have to sign that transaction, and that would harden the system even more.
yeah, 100%. Like I'm old designer in a couple projects with thousands of ETH, and it's always a concern. Like, and we always it's a rule to always have a ledger. There's no way you can put a hot wallet into a multisig. It has to be a fresh and one that you don't use for anything other than signing. And that's just something that is like a requirement. And even then, it's not that secure. You can lose a few keys, you can get stolen, you can get tracked where you live. There's so much things that can happen, and in the end, centralized bank accounts with crypto, hopefully in the future, will be less centralized and secure.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's gonna happen, but
yeah,
let's pray.
yeah. Hopefully, it
But
won't be
yeah,
too centralized.
yeah. Let's see how the space shapes. But thank you very much again, and really appreciate you coming here on this stage. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the talk.
Thank you everybody for having me up here.
Thank
I'll
you,
be on my
Citra.
way.
Yep, and
Nope.
I'll talk to you for setting up the next ones.
Okay, I'll be on that. Thank you everybody.
Thank you, see ya, Tetra.